Alright, so this is going to be an intro video to a series of videos. That's just going to be me talking about my car, maybe some driving videos, some stuff of me working on cars. This is my car. It's a '02 WRX. It's one of the first pictures I actually ever took of it. Um, and the HIDs don't exist anymore, I promise. So, but yeah, so this is actually driving from this summer. It's where I live, Rocky Mountains. Love it. Beautiful, great driving, great, you know, picture taking country. Um, but I'm gonna roll in a video of what my WRX looks like right now. Um, this is actually shot from this morning. Um, Wingless. It's got some stickers on it just to keep the shit out of there. Stock ride height, stock wheels for winter. Got painted side skirts. Knockoff JDM grill and scoop. Got some Hellas, JDM depots, charge speed brake ducts on the outside. Painted the front marker lens there. Um, Mud flaps, of course. You're Colorado, you gotta have that, right? But so that's what it sits at right now, and it's actually been through quite a bit. We'll go back to the driving here. It's been through quite a bit of modifications. Right now, the the engine modifications, the drivetrain modifications. It's got an up pipe, catless up pipe, catless down pipe. Um, it's got a blow off valve, of course. Everyone, you can tell who just bought their turbo car on a group or something, because they always say, "Oh, I want to buy a blow off valve. What one should I get?" And then everyone's gonna say, "Oh, don't get a blow off valve. Keep your bypass. Blah blah blah." Mine came with a blow off valve, and it's had it for I don't know, like 100,000 miles or something like that. So it's not like it's causing any damage. It's supposed to run rich on shifts. Yeah, all that crap. It backfires every once in a while. That's cool. My car's got 160,000 on it. Stock turbo, original motor, original transmission, pretty much original everything. Um, redid a lot of the hoses too. Here, let me find a picture. So this is the intercooler hose, Mishimoto. I really like their products. Came with great clamps. Um, nice thick wall. That's the back one, and then you can kind of see in the bottom there the one that go into the actual throttle body. So yeah, I did those. That kind of helped. It had a boost leak from that hard plastic OEM one. So yeah, that helped do the boost leak. I couldn't find the original Aftermath hose, so this is the Perrin one, on a stock airbox. There's a Blitz um, little cone right there right now. And then the turbo inlet is actually done too. It's like a black silicone. So did the turbo inlet. It had a crack in it, uh, and everything's kind of black silicone. I did the radiator. It's all aluminum. It actually cracked the tank when I lived in Wyoming, which was not fun. Um, but so fix that. It's actually got Mishimoto radiator hoses as well. Um, uh, that's pretty much all the engine modifications. It does have a tune on it. It's an open source tune. Um, I'm not sure what the equivalent, stage one, two, whatever. Um, I don't really keep up with that. But I mean, it's just a stock turbo. It runs very, very solid. Um, there's no hesitation, no jerking it. It's a decent tune. It probably could be leaned out a little bit, but that's okay. Um, it does just have a turbo gauge or a boost gauge right now. Did have some glow shift gauges, which I just didn't like, and they started malfunctioning. I'll see if I can find a picture of that. Hold on. All right, so there's a picture of that. There's an air fuel ratio, boost pressure and fuel pressure. The boost pressure started to malfunction. I actually took out one of them. I think it was a fuel pressure, and put a mechanical boost gauge that was known to be good, reading good, and it just wasn't right. Tried to mess with the sensor a little bit. I think it was ultimately just the sensor was messed up, but that's okay. But anyways, so I got rid of those because I didn't trust them anymore. Um, and so it's just the boost gauge now. Which one of the next things I'm going to do is get some decent, good gauges and kind of work on my tune a little bit. So yeah, that's my kind of mods right now. It's stock suspension, stock sway bars, good struts, the regular springs. That's pretty much it. There's no like strut brace or anything like that. I just took it all off just for. I sold some of it, but for winter. Anyways, so yeah, that's how it sits right now. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about where I came from, as far as vehicles. Um, I'm actually from the South, which is polar opposite from the Rockies. As far as it's humid. It rains down there. It hardly ever snows. Um, but I'll show you what I started out with. So this is what I started out with. It's a V6 Firebird 2000. This is one of the few pictures of it actually snowing in Alabama, which is rare. Um, but yeah, so this is what I had when I was a teenager. It looks nice, but it's actually a rebuilt salvage. So it definitely had some problems, but I liked it. But everyone that has ever owned a lesser model of something, whether it be a 6-cylinder Mustang or 6-cylinder Camaro or Firebird like this one, the, I always just wanted the V8 version, um, and I always thought the more cylinders, the more power, better the car. The more liters it has, the better. And that's what I want. What I wanted back then when I was a teenager was a giant motor, rear wheel drive, fast looking car. Um, and so that's kind of where my journey started. I never really kind of thought twice about import cars. Um, and I'd driven a Camry, which was super just painfully slow, and some other stuff, but nothing had really. I was like, if I want a fast car, I want an American V8, and that's just kind of what my mind was set on. So this kind of got old after a while, so I actually got my '96 Trans Am, which was a beater. Here's a picture. This is actually on the trailer when the head gasket went. But it actually started out as a Firebird Formula, switched it over to Ram Air, had T-tops. It was an automatic, which was like kind of it was all right for there. And this is a car I could have year round, and it wasn't a problem. You didn't need all-wheel drive cars. You didn't need winter tires. You didn't need any of that. Um, and this was kind of my dream car when I was a teenager. And I got this when I was 21. And, I was just like, oh yeah, I got a badass car. I cut the muffler off, and it was loud, and, it was V8, and that's what I wanted. That's what I thought was going to get the chicks and, all that crap. And, I mean, it was fun. It was a fun car. It's fairly quick for, 21-year-old. It was kind of my ignorance towards import cars that kind of I thought this was like the end all be all. Just I'll just keep doing stuff to this and it'll be a million horsepower and be doing wheelies down the street and crap. It definitely has that look of Batmobile sort of badass. I enjoyed it. It didn't have air conditioning, which was not fun in Alabama, but I didn't care. It was a V8. It was loud. It was, it smoked the tires. It would set off car alarms, and that's what I cared about back then. And it actually blew the head gasket a couple weeks after I bought it. I only bought it for $2,500, so it was kind of like, I'm pretty sure the guy knew that was like that. And then the coolant when I was taking apart the motor, it was all clumpy and stuff. So I'm pretty sure he uh, put some stop leak or something in there, head gasket fix, the crappy stuff. Anyways, so my journey on this car, I decided to rebuild the motor completely, not just stick a head gasket on it. So I took it to a nice man's shop who let me use his lift and proceeded to rebuild the motor, um, which I actually bought a cam kit for his LT4 hot cam kit. Put headers on it, stalled converters, just everything that I could think of, and so I took everything apart, got it powder coated, got the transmission rebuilt, and I was just like, this car is going to be the baddest effing things on the street. I'm gonna have the coolest car in my neighborhood. All that jazz. It's gonna be fast. It's gonna be nasty, and when I got done, it was a fun car, and I about the time I got it finished, it was when I decided to move out west just because I could, and I just visited there. This is a picture of the motor. We added the valve covers powder coated, intake, and had it all cleaned up. And I mean, I did do a thorough job. The subframe, you can kind of see it. I painted it all like semi gloss and pressure washed and cleaned it all off and all that stuff. Had sent the computer, mailed that off to get tuned. Um, so it did have a tune and all that stuff on it. It's pretty quick. Um, and I drove this car across country after I built it, and it did fine other than the crappy fuel pump. Um, but this is kind of my ignorance towards imports. At the same time as this was going on, my friend had bought a 2012 Mazda Speed 3, and I remember he was test driving it, and I was at work, and he came by and he's like, "Oh man, you gotta jump in this car and go check it out." And I'm like, "Okay." So go to my boss and be like, "Oh, I'm checking out. I'm just taking a lunch." And he said, "Okay." And so I hop in this car in the passenger seat, and it's a 6-speed car. I know it's an import. I don't really know anything about it. And this is from, the only imports I'd ridden were like a Camry or a base model Neon, or, stuff that's like you don't think about it being a quick car. And this Mazda Speed 3 was just, I think it made 290 horsepower at the crank. And so he had to, he had the dealership let him go test drive. So he dropped by, and we went down the street, and he's just wrapping it out through, like, just winding it out through all the gears, and it's just like I'm getting pushed back in my seat, and it's just like, holy crap. I'm like, what motor is in this? And he's like, oh, it's just a 4-cylinder. I'm just like, no way. Like, what? I mean, how much power does it make? And he's like, oh, I don't know. It's 290, I think, is what it made. And it's just, he's like, oh yeah, it's got a turbo on it. And I'm like, oh my god, I've never been in a car that would really do that to you. I mean, I'm not like, I'm used to the Mustangs and Cobras and shit. Like, I don't, never, that really opened my eyes to like, oh my god, a Japanese car could actually be this fast. And I've never experienced that. And so, he winds up buying the car, and we do some stuff to it. Let me see if I can find some pictures. So yeah, here's a picture of what it did look like. It was that color and everything. And this isn't actually it. It's like a promo picture or something. But that's a fast car, and we he wound up. I think he put a front mount on it and did intake and exhaust and a blow off valve, and I mean it was fun. I mean it would spin through 3 gears, and I mean it was stupid fast. It really was I think it was like $20,000 or something. I think he bought it new. I mean so fast for what for the price. I was just like, oh my god, this is an import 4-cylinder, and it's just smoking a lot of these domestic things. And I'd gotten my Trans Am back together at that point, and I had a cam installed and a tune, and this would keep up, and wouldn't really walk away, but it would uh, definitely, I wasn't walking away from it either, and the Trans Am just didn't handle as well as this did. Um, this got decent gas mileage too. I mean, it's just like the complete package. Really, it seemed like it was fast. It may not be the best looker with its little smiley face bumper on it, but I mean, it sounded good. It was fast. It got decent gas mileage. You kept your foot out of it, but so at this point, I had two Firebirds. I'm gonna see a picture of it here. So I sold my 6 cylinder, which was the red one on the left, and then the black one. I drove cross country after I built it when I decided I was moving. So I came out west and actually in the summertime, and I'd always in back in the south I had seen WRXs. There weren't very many. There really weren't very many Subarus at all, but there were some, um, and so you just didn't really see any, and so but I've seen one or two before, and I was like, man, those things look cool. I like the way the hood scoop. I like the fog lights. I like the overall look of the car was cool. I didn't know anything about it. Never seen a boxer motor in my life, um, and so I come out to Colorado. It's beautiful, beautiful Rocky Mountains, and um, I take my Trans Am through the canyons and stuff, and it's all right. It I never really driven anything that handled better than that, and it had some suspension stuff done to it. It had good strut, Bilstein struts, and some lowering springs and adjustable panhard bar, and some. I mean, it had some stuff. It had a strut tower brace and all that jazz. And it would keep up with a lot of the stuff. But I just remember in the canyon one day, it was just this. You get to like the 2 lane part where you can actually pass someone. And there's a Subaru is just. I mean, there's like a line of cars, and the Subaru is just, just flies past, and it's on a corner, and it's just like, just disappears into the distance up this canyon, and I'm going, fairly quick, 50 miles an hour or something in a canyon, twisty turnies. Um, so I see this Subaru just like disappear, and it's kind of just stuck in my mind, and it came time to get a car that would actually work in winter because I had huge tires on the Trans Am. I think it was 295s in the back, 255s in the front, and it was just I mean, you could, when it rained, you just slide all over the place. It was like, this thing's never going to make it anywhere in snow. And so, I decided I wanted a turbo Subaru. I knew from a past experience with the 6 cylinder Firebird that if I bought something like a 2.5 RS or an Outback or something, I would just, every time I got into it, I'd be like, man, I wish this was a WRX or an STI. And so I was just like, I'm just going to buy a turbo car to begin with, get something I want. And so I went to the credit union, got a loan, um, got a bug eye, um, and it was what I could afford at the time. I think it was like $8,000 a few years ago, um, and I first time I took in the canyon, I blew my mind. I never had anything that handled like that. Um, I never owned a car with a 5 speed. Never owned a car with a turbo. Never owned an all-wheel drive car. And it was completely stock at that point. I mean, it was pretty um, basic. I mean, I think it had a cold air and a blow-off valve is what that other guy put on it. But fairly, unmolested. Didn't stock wheels, stock tire, all that stuff, stock suspension. No exhaust on it or anything. And it just in stock form, I was just like, oh my! I mean, it's just light years better than the Trans Am was. I'm not sure if it's just because the independent suspension or it was lighter, the weight bound. I'm not really sure. I'm sure it was all the combination of all those things. But I'm like, oh, here's my Trans Am, with these huge tires and wheels and all this stuff done, tubular control arms, and there's all this stuff that's done to it, and it's like there's not really much left to do to it, really, um, as far as like handling wise, um, and this thing could probably just smoke it in the canyons. I mean, it's just black and white, night and day. Just this thing would just blow it away. And so that's kind of where it started. Where I was like, okay, this car is like legit. I made a good purchase, um, and so I drove it more and more and more, and then after a while, I just didn't even drive the Trans Am. Every once in a while on a sunny day or something, um, which is all the time here in Colorado. But just to get that V8 noise. But I mean, I just want to drive this all the time. It's such a fun car to drive, and so that's kind of where it started for me. Was I was like, okay, I'm keeping this car. It handles well. It's got some decent power. Um, I like the way it looks, and there's a community out here for that, and the Mazda really opened my eyes to what an import could do as far as like it being fast, and then this car really opened my eyes for what an import could do for handling, um, and it's just the all-wheel drive. It's set up fairly neutral, it seems like from the factory, so it wasn't like it wasn't like a whole lot of oversteer. I mean, it was understeer a little bit for me, but it's set up so well compared to what I had driven before, being like a Trans Am or a Mustang or something, where it's just like a heavy engine up front and a solid axle in the back and a fairly heavy car just all around. And getting in this thing where it was fairly compact compared, even though it had 4 doors. I mean, it's still pretty tiny compared, but I mean, it's just ridiculous, night and day. But anyways, so yeah, you're looking at it now. That was a off-road trail, supposed to be Jeeps only sort of thing, but I took it on it and it did fine. Didn't have any problems. Didn't break an oil pan, anything like that. Um, but it's like the Swiss Army knives of cars. It really is. This is a picture when I had an STI wing on it, which I got rid of later. I just got over it. Um, but yeah, stock wheels. I think it just had some lowering springs on it. I don't think it had anything else done to the suspension. I think it's just some lowering springs. Just put some mud flaps on it. Had the factory style fog light covers on there. The original fog lights were just toast as far as they're just so pitted from just winter driving and stuff. They were ugly. They weren't really doing anything for me. So the fog lights went. Put these covers on. Got them at a fairly decent price. But so at this point, I was just like, all right, I'm getting my car to look like a rally car, and I just need some wheels. And the JDM depots were my favorite thing, really. I mean, they changed the entire look of the car. They really help as far at night and stuff like that. It's probably my favorite exterior modification. So yeah, this had the stock wheels with some decent tires on there. I think I just put some tires on there. So yeah, I was like, oh, I'm living in Denver, and it's like all you want is some rims or some wheels, not rims, sorry. Some wheels and some coilovers, and you want it stanced and all that jazz. But at this point, it handled okay, and there wasn't a whole lot done to the suspension. So this is where I got the wheels. This was a couple weeks later, I think, but they're XXR 518s. Just put some new tires on there. I actually like the way this looks. Not necessarily the butt sag a little bit, but I dug the way this looked, and I was like, okay, I'm on the right track. And I had some gold wheels, which I like the gold wheels. Some people don't. And I actually like the 518s. I think that's what model those are. But I think I got them for like $400, and I put some tires on there. It wasn't a bad deal. But I I liked the way that looked. Um, so that this still, I mean, the only thing done to the suspension was like lowering springs. I hadn't done any kind of sway bars at this point, or bracing, or any kind of bushings, anything like that. So the next step for me, I was like, okay, it looks good. His handle's kind of like, I'm not real impressed. Yeah, I kind of gotten used to the way it handled, so I was kind of looking for something more. So I did order some sway bars. I think I had a white line front, 24 millimeter, and no name kind of eBay sort of rear one. It was advertised at 22, but I mic'd it and it was like 23 almost. So those went on with new bushings. Had an H brace, um, and that's when I decided, to go with the sort of coilovers, which what this is. So they were dipped white, of course. It's Denver. That's the STI wings gone. Um, and this was with coilovers, and it actually handled very well, in my opinion. When I took it up in the mountains, this is the last place I lived when I was out of the mountains. Um, but I liked it. It looked really good. To me, it handled very very well. And at this point, it was very apparent that there was some other work that needed to be done as far as there was some bearing noise. Like the engine and tranny mounts were obviously just shot. Um, a lot of that. I mean, it didn't feel like it was holding up to being that low and that aggressive. So that's when I decided to kind of dial it back a little bit. But let me see. I think I got a picture of. I had some brake ducts that I put on. I have a picture of that. Here, hold on. So here's the picture of the ducts I put on. I took that black kind of GTR style dip off. But I kind of like the way those look too. I kept those because I like that. But anyway, so at this point, I'm like, okay, this car handles very well, and it's getting me into trouble because up in the mountains, I'm going way too fast on these back roads. 100 miles an hour on some of these roads. These passes and stuff where it's just like, oh god, I didn't feel like I could drive the car to its potential, so I wasn't really having as much fun because I was never driving it as much as I felt I could, if that makes any sense. So, and this is with, pretty low profile tires and coilovers and bracing and sway bars and, H brace, strut brace, all this jazz. And it felt kind of like the car wasn't happy with it, I guess. So I kind of dialed it back. I put the stock suspension back in it. So the coilovers I just sold says stock ride height. Put the stock wheels back on it. Got rid of the old ones because in the mountains it's not exactly um, you know a comfortable ride. There's a lot of times I was afraid that I was going to bend a wheel or something like that, or break a wheel or something since they're kind of cheaper wheels. But I put the stock suspension back on and let me kind of go out into the woods, if you will. This is a picture after it was a like the weekend after I put this factory suspension back on it, and I kind of took it back in the woods. It was fall, it was beautiful. But yeah, as it kind of went back to the factory, which you could see in the first video, um, how tall it was. Um, so yeah, it's like it's just like a Swiss Army knife of cars. I said that, but I plan on keeping this car just because it can do so much. I mean it does snow well. It does dry pavement better. It does dirt, gravel. This is some footage of a off road trail. Um, it follows a narrow gauge railroad track, I believe. So basically, there's a railroad running right where I'm driving, and um, I guess they whatever company owned it, I think took the material and either scrapped it or reused it or something like that. But it's from the 1800s, so yeah, this follows where that train would have run. But there's some. I mean, if you keep watching, if you're still watching at this point, that's great. Thanks for sticking with me. Um, but if you keep watching, there's some pretty stout, sections where this car is, it didn't really have any problems that I can think of. It didn't never really scraped. I think the side of the car got scraped by some branches, which would be the only thing that you could ever really see um, wrong with it. But yeah, I mean, it does so many things and it does them well that, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like the best at anything. It's the best at being versatile. Um, I guess that the hauling, the cargo capacity is not exactly stellar, but there's Bajas, the um, that have like a STI kind of drivetrain. That would probably be what, if I got something else, I'd probably get a Baja with a try to find one with a manual transmission. I think they're fairly expensive, but I've seen them. I've seen some guys with them, and have that 2.5 turbo. But but yeah, I mean, I definitely plan on keeping it. Which is, I mean, I wouldn't bother making a video if I didn't plan on keeping it. And not everything always goes as planned, but as long as I still have it, I'll keep making some videos on it. And so my plans are, and this during this video, this is when it's raised up from coilovers. So this is factory ride height that it's doing this stuff at. You can see there's some pretty decent rocks. But my plans for it, I'm actually going to kind of lower it a little bit, maybe like 1.5 inches or something like that. Keeping some struts with some stiffer springs. Probably going to up the sway bars a little bit. I actually have a wagon one in the back now. The stock WRX one in the front, and there's a WRX wagon one in the back that's smaller. Because I like the oversteer. I like a little bit of that, from driving through the mountains for a few years quickly. So I do like that. So I'd probably put maybe the factory WRX one back in the back, and maybe just an upgraded one in the front. I'm not really sure. And probably get some meaty tires. I'm not sure on the wheel choices. It'll have to be something I can actually afford. So probably picking something up secondhand. I thought about doing the STI BBS wheels, and there's one right now, $400 for the wheels. They're 5x114, so I'd have to get like an adapter. But I mean, $400 for some STI BBS wheels. They're black, and I'd just stick some good tires on there. Those are 17 by, I'm not sure, like 8 or something, 17, 7.5, something like that, 17 by 7.5 or 8. But I mean, I wouldn't really need much more than that. To have fun. I'm not. This is going to be like a mild, have fun in the mountains sort of car is what I want it to be, and something that can still get me around in winter. But pull up to a car meet and not be stock looking, which it's already not really. But to keep the factory wheels with those tires for winter time, and yeah, do stuff like this on trails and stuff. They're fun. I probably wouldn't do this one again, just because I was clenched the entire time. But yeah, I definitely enjoy it. But I'd be doing stuff probably more like this, which was last night. It looks like I'm going 1 million miles an hour, but I'm not. I'm doing like 45. The camera just makes it seem like it, and it looks like I can't see anything, but I can see plenty. It's just the angle on the camera, you can't really tell. But this is just some mountain roads. Last night I just did the tranny fluid, and it feels amazing. Shifting's a lot easier. It's like a different car now. But yeah, just kind of blasting through some roads. Not really. Just kind of my own little world, just going. And, not really speeding or anything. And just I think the speed limits varies from like 35 to 55 on this road, and I'm doing 40, 45 kind of throughout. Just went over to another mountain town and kind of turned around and came back. It was fun. I mean, it just took up a few hours last night, and I had fun. Um, but yeah, I hope you got hope you enjoyed this a little bit. It's just an intro, so stick around. I'm gonna put some videos up, maybe some unedited ones of me just driving through the mountains, and we'll catch you later.